All right, let's go ahead and get started. We'll call this meeting of the Property Committee to order for Thursday, March 4th, 2021. Let the record show that all members are in attendance except for Member Bloomfield. First order of business on the agenda after our roll call attendance here is approval of the consent agenda. Would entertain a motion from the committee for that. A motion by Member Smith, second by Member Thompson. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, Ms. Morlock, please call the roll. The chair will vote.
Thank you, sir. Member Wendt. Member Wendt?
Hello.
I don't know if we're voting on the consent agenda.
Present. Hello. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Member Smith, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Thompson.
Yes.
Member Wachinski.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Woolrab.
Yes.
Chairman Barnett.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the committee this evening?
Chairman Barnett, we do not have any public comment submissions this evening.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, number 4, departmental matters. Administrator Rodriguez, you are first up.
I get to be first. This is a first since I've been in this role that the agenda has had me first. I am going to present item A1A, which is recommend the approval of directing county administration staff to research the potential cost savings to utilities using solar panels on one or more McLean County government buildings.
All right. And we do have someone here to give a presentation about that. But before we get into that, just so we can get this on the floor and at least chat about it a bit, is there a motion from a member of the committee to approve this? A motion by Member Wachinski, second by Member Thompson. All right. I'm actually going to let Vice Chairwoman Woolrab take the lead on this. She has been digging into the possibility of this for us, and so Lori, I'll turn it over to you for introduction of our speaker and set the table for us this evening.
Thank you, Chairman Barnett. I'd like to welcome to our meeting today Larissa Armstrong from the Ecology Action Center. Larissa is going to speak to us about the program that is designed specifically for public buildings to make it easy for the owners of public buildings to install solar panels, and she can describe the program as how it's set up to ensure that we would have cost savings if we meet all the requirements of it. And actually, the program is really designed to make it as easy as possible for the owners of the public buildings to go ahead with this. So Larissa has worked with the Normal Township on their new installation of solar panels at the ARC Center, as well as she's currently working, my understanding, and she can describe this, with a number of other building owners in town. Some of them are churches, some other not-for-profit entities. So I think with that, I'll just turn it over to Larissa and let her start the program. Thank you, Larissa.
Thanks. Thank you, Lori. I'm happy to be here. I did put some slides together. I don't know how much time I have, so if it seems like it's taking too long, you can tell me to get it moving. But I wanted to make sure that I provide you with as much information as possible so that you can make informed decisions. So I will share my screen. Can everybody see that okay? Yes? Okay. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Ecology Action Center. Just a little quick plug. It is our 50th anniversary this year, which is pretty exciting. And not only do we provide education and technical services for solid waste and clean water, which I'm sure members of the county board are more familiar with, but we also have an energy efficiency program that I run, and we use that to, we've used that program as leverage to expand our energy related services to provide information to the community about renewable energy as well. And one of the ways that we are doing that right now is by serving as a grassroots educator for the Illinois Solar for All program. Illinois Solar for All is part of the larger Future Energy Jobs Act that was passed in 2016, and it is designed to strengthen Illinois' economy by increasing development of renewable energy sources across the state. And Illinois Solar for All's main purpose is to increase access to renewable energy for low-income members of the community, as well as nonprofits and public facilities. So how do nonprofits and public facilities participate? Essentially, any eligible nonprofit or public facility can have solar panels put on their building, provided they meet some certain eligibility requirements. So the property either needs to be occupied by the nonprofit or public facility and or owned by the public facility. It needs to be located in a low-income community, which I'll explain more in a moment. And it must be a critical service provider. And just really, some of the things on the critical service provider list are, providing public services, helping, basically, education facilities, churches, anything like that. It's a pretty long list, so I would imagine that most county buildings meet those requirements. And then they must be able to demonstrate community engagement. Quickly, an environmental justice community, Bloomington does have one area that is designated as an environmental justice community, which means that area suffers more from environmental degradation. And so as you can see by the inset map there, it's essentially a little triangular chunk over on West Bloomington that's with the north border being Market Street and the south border being 6 Points. And then the blue area on the map just to the east of the pre-designated environmental justice community was a self-designated area, which basically encompasses the majority of West Bloomington. Low-income communities, which is what, so to qualify for the program, you either need to be in an environmental justice community or a low-income community. Low-income communities just means that more than 50% of households in the area meet the income requirements for the program, which is 80% or less area median income. So I did put in two maps here. This is downtown Bloomington, and this is just based on, what Lori said, some of the buildings that you were considering. So this would be where like the health department is, things like that. And then this lower map is where the McLean County Nursing Home is. So both of those properties are in low-income qualified districts, and I would be able to happily either share the link where you can look up other ones or look them up for you if you're interested in other buildings. There is a GIS map on the Illinois Solar for All site where you can plug in addresses to see if they qualify. Essentially, the savings work where a solar array is put on your building, someone else finances it, you receive the offsets on your electricity bill by what the solar panels have generated, and you also get net metering credits. Net metering basically means that any energy that the system generates that isn't used immediately at that time rolls over to later, so that you get to use all of the solar energy that you produce before you pay for any additional energy you might require from the utility. Kind of like rollover minutes for your phone, even though those aren't really a thing anymore. So how does the financing work inside the Illinois Solar for All program? The state has something called Solar Renewable Energy Credits, or SRECs. Those are based on production value of solar arrays, and it's essentially the state's way of staking claim over other people's solar projects so that the state can meet its goal of 25% renewable energy by 2025. So SRECs are available to anybody that gets a solar project. So like if I had solar on my house, I could get SRECs from the state to help offset the costs. Inside the Illinois Solar for All program, the SREC rates are significantly higher. And the idea is that a developer would receive all of those renewable energy credits plus any federal tax credits that are available, which nonprofits can't access. And then the developer would pay to have the installation put on the building and then lease it to the organization at a reduced rate. And that reduced rate is guaranteed by the Illinois Solar for All program. It has to be offered. So any way you slice it, you are going to save money on your energy bill because it's a requirement inside this program. And the SRECs are higher to help incentivize developers to pay for these projects ahead of time. And I will say that it's usually something called a power purchase agreement. That's the language that they use. And those are typically exist even outside of the Illinois Solar for All program. For example, the YWCA has solar on their building that they got in, I'm not sure, maybe 2017. It's been several years now. Before the Illinois Solar for All program existed, and they used a power purchase agreement where someone else financed the system and leased the energy to them for a period of, say, 15 to 20 years. But that lease rate is lower than what they typically pay for their utility fees. So they are saving money on that. But inside the Illinois Solar for All program, the savings are higher because the renewable energy credits are more valuable. You would have two bills inside the Illinois Solar for All program, or even with just a standard power purchase agreement. So you have your standard utility bill, where you'll see, significant savings because of the solar panels. But then you would also have your lease bill from your financer. How does the process work? Illinois Solar for All has pre-designated what they call approved vendors, who are either developers or financiers that work with developers who are eligible to broker the SRECs inside this program. There's a list of approved vendors that are working in this area that I can easily provide. Then once you're connected with some approved vendors, they would ask for a year's worth of your utility data, and because all solar projects are based on the amount of energy that you use in a year. So it's based on that plus roof size, and that's how they determine how big of a solar array you need to offset the amount of energy that you generally use. And then lastly, the approved vendor, either independently if they're financing the project themselves or if they're working with a secondary finance partner, would develop a power purchase agreement for the organization. I do have some examples. This is a case study that Straight Up Solar put together. This just kind of helps paint a better picture of what those energy savings and monetary savings can look like. Again, any solar project is unique to its site. So, these numbers would vary on a case-by-case basis, but this just does illustrate what the general savings can be. So in this instance, the organization is paying significantly less per kilowatt hour than what their Ameren rate was. And while I said that most power purchase agreements have a contract period of around 15 to 20 years, in this case, the contract period was just 6 years. And after 6 years, the organization was able to take full ownership of their solar array. So this gives you an idea of what the total amount they were paying on for energy before they had solar. And this, can you see it, or is it cut off at the bottom of the screen? It might be cut off. And after they had solar, they were seeing around a 65% savings annually on their energy costs. So this highlights that. shows you what the pre-solar costs were, how much they're paying initially, and then after the 6 years when they own their full system, and shows their savings. So over just in 6 years, they saved over $12,000 on their energy costs. So as Lori mentioned, through this program, we have had multiple nonprofits have solar projects approved. So we were working with the Normal Township Activity and Recreation Center, as well as the Habitat Restore, the Wayman AME Church, and Christ Church. Both the Restore and Wayman AME were located in the environmental justice area for Illinois Solar for All, and then the other two fell into those 50% low-income community areas. This is some data that I got from Jim Walters at Habitat. I asked him about his experience with the program. He said total staff time in order to get the paperwork filled out and do a walkthrough with, they used Straight Up Solar, who's a local installer that works with approved vendors to finance projects. He said he probably spent maybe half a day total staff time on the project, just pulling some paperwork together. Otherwise, Kai at Straight Up Solar did the rest of the work, including giving a presentation to their board for approval. So this is what the project looks like for the Restore, including their power purchase agreement rate and what their total savings are going to be over time. So over a 20-year period, they're going to spend around $96,000 on their energy costs, but their total savings through both solar and financial savings combined is over 25-year period is going to be well over $250,000. Similarly, this just kind of lays out what their energy bill looked like before they had solar, and it looks like they're paying around $9,000 a year on energy. And after, it looks like they're going to be paying closer to $500. I also spoke with Sarah Grammer at the township, and she said that it was the easiest construction project she has ever been a part of. Their solar arrays are already up and on the building, and the center is projected to save close to $25,000 just in the first year of that those solar panels being active. And they just have a 6-year contract, and they're going to save over $150,000 over the course of that 6-year period. So that will all be money that they'll be able to put back into the services that they offer at their facility. And that is basically the gist, and I am happy to answer any questions that anybody might have, or go back to any slides if you want to see something again.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Larissa, for taking the time to walk us through that. Before we open it up to questions, I would just want to share with the committee, those of you who are carried over to this committee from the previous term, you may remember we talked about this at a high level, I don't know, probably about a year ago before the world fell apart, is my recollection. And now that things had calmed down a bit, we wanted to sort of circle back on this and just explore the possibility and see what our options may be. The motion, the action item that's on the agenda that we have a motion and a second for, this doesn't commit us to moving forward with the project. It gives staff direction to dig into it and to see what the possibilities may be. So that would then be brought back to this committee for further discussion once some more concrete details are hammered out. So just wanted to clarify that a bit with the committee. So with that said, does anyone have questions for Larissa about this? Vice Chairwoman Woolrab, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Larissa, would you talk a little bit about, you and I spoke about this for a while back. Can you talk about the timeline in order if we were to try to move forward with it in a calendar year sort of framework?
Sure. Right now, they don't have the schedule out yet, but I'm assuming that through the Illinois Solar for All program, that they will be accepting new nonprofit and public facility project applications in June. So if it was something that you were considering, then having some paperwork and stuff ready to be submitted by that time would allow you to get a project into the queue for approval this year. But again, even if an Illinois Solar for All project does not come to fruition, generally speaking, nonprofits and public facilities can still access power purchase agreement options to have solar put on their buildings where someone else finances the program and or finances the installation and leases it at a reduced rate. It's just that those savings might not be as large as they would be inside the Illinois Solar for All program.
Administrator Rodriguez.
If it's okay, if other members have questions first, I would acquiesce. Okay. Larissa, it seems as though the equipment that is placed on the roof of a public building is leased. Who maintains it? Who repairs it?
Sure.
And how long, I'm sorry, I'm asking a three-part question. Who repairs it and maintains it? And then upon the end of the 6-year agreement, what is the longevity of such equipment?
Sure.
Does it last longer than 6 years in general? And I ask these questions because our facilities and maintenance personnel deal with already a lot of equipment with a small staff, and I
Absolutely.
want to know what our commitment is in that regard.
For sure. So for a power purchase agreement, during the length of that agreement, depending, regardless of how long it is, whether it's 6 years or 10, depending on how the finances work out, the financier is in charge of all of the fees and maintenance associated with the solar array while that agreement is still in place. After the agreement ends and you become the full owners of the solar array, then that responsibility would fall to you. However, solar panels don't really require a lot of maintenance. On a flat roof, they don't even penetrate roof surface to attach solar panels. They just weigh them down and lay them on the roof. Most solar panels have a warranty of around 25 years, but function well beyond that 25-year period of time. It's just that's the years that they're warranted to. They're also rated for 1-inch hail at like 50 miles an hour. So it takes a lot to damage them. And I'm trying to remember what the other part of your question was. Oh, the nice thing is solar panels don't really have any moving parts. So there's very little to break. And all solar panels are attached to an inverter, which changes the DC electricity that the panels generate to AC electricity that buildings use. But that inverter then is also keeping track of the real-time production of the solar panels. So if something, and it has a web portal, so you could just look it up on your phone and see how well your solar panels are doing at any given time. And if you see, significant dips that are kind of uncharacteristic of general production value, then you would be able to call a solar developer and say, hey, I think the panels aren't functioning properly. Can someone come and take a look at it?
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Additional questions? Member Thompson.
Yeah, my question is more about just study in general. How will they prioritize which buildings, or will they just look at all buildings? Obviously, they got to meet the criteria that you explained, but and maybe there's not that many that would, I just was curious if there'd been any thought on that, just which one to start with.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, is that a question for me? That sounds more like a question for you all.
I think,
Yeah, that's just general. I don't know who would, yeah, that was, again, that was a question for kind of just for the study, and because that's what we're talking about voting on, is a study to look at this, right?
yeah, I would say that would be part of the due diligence that that staff would do in the process is figuring out, which buildings we would target. Would it be the government center? Would it be the nursing home? Would it be, something else? And moving forward from there.
Which one would be the most best economic return, I assume?
Yeah, right.
And if I may, Chairman, in my bit of research
Please.
in advance of this meeting, thank you, sir. I shouldn't use the word skeptical, but I didn't see how many of the buildings that we have fit into the categories, but I'm certain that in our research, we'll examine that and try to understand if even there's an exemption for some of our buildings. The nursing home doesn't provide the kind of public service that I thought, but I was also sort of a lay person in this subject, reading the Illinois Solar for All policy manual today and trying to understand which one of our buildings would make sense. And then I think there's also, examination on our part, which would be part of this due diligence, working with maintenance, or I'm sorry, facilities, to understand the, is there engineering work that needs to be done to understand if our roofs can withstand the solar placement as compared to the other things on the roof? I have so many questions, but it is about the research at this point. So, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Oh, Vice Chairwoman Woolrab.
Just curious, so would administration then work with Ecology Action Center as a start on this research? Where does this begin?
Well,
Are you asking me, Vice Chair Woolrab?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
Are you asking me that question, or Larissa?
I think maybe Ms. Armstrong or you, Ms. Rodriguez.
I would be happy to assist in whatever capacity I am able. And I would also just throw out there that most solar developers can, walk through a lot of that process with like a facilities manager or something to that effect. Like they know what to look for when they're looking at different roof, whether a roof is in good enough shape, things like that. Whether your electric panel has enough input space for the new solar panels. These are things that they're used to looking at all the time. So they would be able to assist with that, and could even, in your, as you're trying to determine which buildings might be best suited, they would be able to provide you financials for just a standard power purchase agreement and financials for an Illinois Solar for All project, so that you could kind of weigh those options too as you move forward.
Thank you. And if I may add my answer to part of Ms. Woolrab's question, I think we also can't forget as a team here that our buildings are owned by the Public Building Commission. And that is another step in this process that I will need to research with my staff. I also have a list of concerns about our liability insurance. Will that be affected positively or negatively by the placement of panels on one of our buildings and so forth? And so really important for us to research all of the possibilities as well. And I'm actually asking Larissa a question now. The approved vendors, were those decided through some kind of request for proposals process? I mean, because we have our own procurement policies that I would need to follow as we enter later, if at all we do this, into agreements. And I'm not certain from the literature I looked at how they were chosen.
Yes, and I can find some more detailed information on that process and share it with you if you'd like. But yes, the approved vendors first have to be approved by the Illinois Commerce Commission to participate in the adjustable block program, which is basically the regular solar program for the state. And then if they're interested in participating in Illinois Solar for All, had to submit proposals for that to get basically extra verification to participate in that program.
I'm sorry, and then do entities, like in our case, you know, not-for-profits also still do a request for proposals to each vendor? Because I can't imagine that each vendor would have the exact same charge to do the work if there were more than one approved vendor in our community.
Sure. I'm not exactly sure what the other nonprofit processes were specifically, but I know that both the Activity and Recreation Center and Habitat Restore, actually all four of the nonprofits that are getting projects in our community through Illinois Solar for All are utilizing straight up solar. I can't speak for them, but my assumption is that part of that was because it is a local installer who is more familiar with local regulations for that type of work. But yeah, I imagine that they reached out to multiple vendors to get quotes, but I'm not sure what their specific process was.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Larissa, if I may clarify, the equipment itself, I mean, well, the panels, right? That's not something that, assuming we would move forward with this, that's not something that we would go out and shop for, right? That's what the vendor that we choose, they would take care.
Yes.
They would take care of all that.
They will do all of it. Yep.
And
They'll
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry. They have all the materials, will procure all of the panels and hardware. They'll do the installation. They will also work directly with the utility for interconnection agreements, work with any public entities for any proper code applications, and also submit the application to Elevate, which is the organization based in Chicago that's managing the Illinois Solar for All program, and connect the organization with financiers as well. So they do, 98% of the work.
I know that locally, Normal Township, right, has installed these on the Recreation Center.
Yep.
I'm assuming there's other branches of local government around the state who have taken advantage of this and use this program in some way. I'm not putting you on the spot asking you to name them off the top of your head, but
I can look on the approved project list to see what the other entities across the state were. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to those. I was more interested in the ones that were here just for my own satisfaction, but I do have a list of all of the nonprofit projects that were approved last year, and I can share that.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, well, seeing none, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote on this. The chair will vote. This is, to clarify, this is for 4A, 1A, recommend the approval of directing county administration staff to research the potential cost savings to utilities using solar panels on one or more McLean County government buildings.
Member Went,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Wachinski,
Yes.
Member Woolrab,
Yes.
Chairman Barnett.
Yes. Thank you all. Motion passes unanimously. With the timeline that's before us, I'm assuming staff will be back before the committee before too long here to update us on the progress of this and what they found. Administrator Rodriguez, I'll turn it back over to you for the rest of your section.
Thank you, Chairman Barnett. I move on to items presented for information, A2A. If Ms. Julie Emig is present, she's the Executive Director of the McLean County History Museum, and I know Chairman Barnett arranged for Ms. Emig to join us. I actually meet with her once a month to just connect and talk about the facility and their needs and how Mr. Doherty has been so helpful. So anyway, I'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
Well, and if I may, real quick, just for the committee's benefit, you know, the museum and the old courthouse on the square is, you know, a true historic piece of local architecture that we're entrusted to care for, and has been, you know, part of the county for, you know, about 100 years. And with that in mind, you know, in talking with Ms. Emig, we thought it'd be great to have her come every quarter and share what has been going on at the museum and keep us up to date on that. So this is the first time this year that you'll be seeing her, but she'll be back again as we go throughout the year, just to make sure that we're up on what is going on at the museum, and also keeping up on specifically what their property needs may be. So with that said, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Larissa set a wonderful precedent because she had visuals. And I intended to bring visuals, but I will let you learn as I share what's going on at the museum, why you will have to wait for my next presentation for said visuals. One of the big goals that we have this year is to create a new strategic plan. The museum has been operating on the fumes of a strategic plan that was adopted in 2011. So we have a lot of work to do. And it's been really invigorating conversation. And there are three areas that I'm going to focus on with you today. And first is our goal, our strategic goal, to learn with our community. The second one is investing in our people and in our history. And the final one is investing in our space. And that certainly aligns with the partnership we have with the McLean County. And we really want to emphasize that the museum is your museum, your history. What happens under the dome belongs to all of us. So everything we're doing is very intentional about that message and making it pervasive. So the first bit of information I am happy to share with you is all the work we've been doing around learning with our community, education, and outreach. We've been closed for almost one whole year, but even that has not stopped the museum staff from continuing to offer great services. We extended our cemetery walk, the virtual cemetery walk, through the end of 2020. And by the end, we had over 500 public users, 132 adults and seniors, older adults and seniors. And the stat that I'm most excited about is that over 2,000 students, teachers, and parents. All of our elder participants and schools and students were free of charge. And the schools, in fact, were the ones who really requested that we extend our walk through the end of the year, because teachers were using the virtual resource as part of their curriculum. And I can't think of a better way to, lift up historical education by using these primary and secondary sources in the classroom. And because we were so successful, we are going to do a hybrid model in 2021. So we'll have some on-site cemetery walk experiences that are similar to what we've done before, but we will continue to offer a virtual space because it was just really well lauded. We also are really engaged in a senior reminiscence program, and I'm very intrigued by this. I learned about it most recently from museum staff, and we moved it to snail mail. We can't go to the senior centers and do outreach like we used to. So in lieu of that, we created historical images from our archives and sent them to over 1,000 senior residents living at 24 senior care facilities throughout the county. And it's a way to kind of reach through the darkness of these times and provide some light, But my understanding too is that when we're able to go back to the full activation of the senior reminiscence, a lot of it is about partnering with these organizations to get our seniors to tell their stories and think about their past and offer insight that can ultimately be transferred back into our archives of this treasure trove of information, stimulating their thinking and just engaging them in the life of the work that we do. We also have launched our Breaking Bread series, which is focused on immigration in McLean County. It's a 10-part series. It's all online. It's all free of charge. We had over 180 registered users for our first broadcast. It's all in the salsa, Mexican stories in McLean County. And we're gearing up for our second broadcast, Johnny Cakes to Patty Cakes, Irish Cookery, for Saturday, March 13th. And let me tell you, we are really excited to keep honoring kind of our local immigrant community, tell their stories, bring it up to present day, and share some darn good recipes at the same time. Our humanities curator is working really hard to translate all of our exhibits to an online platform to create greater access. And just as a final number, I learned from our director of education that just under 10,000 people participated in our programming during the year of 2020. And that was, you know, after we'd closed in March and haven't reopened. So the second thing I'll shift to is all the work we're doing to invest in our people and in our history. Our library and archives staff, they continue to be busier than ever. And thanks to a pretty generous grant from the Institute for Museum and Library Sciences, we have digitized over 30,000 pantograph images. And we've uploaded them for public use. Again, access is free, into the Illinois Digital Archives. And all of this is linked on our museum website. And we continually hear that it has been widely embraced, not only by local residents, but folks who are doing research, whether it's personal or scholarly, and patrons share images and comment on them, use them sometimes within hours after the images first become available. So we are actively seeking a second grant so we can continue that work, because apparently the pantograph has another, I don't know, at least 50,000 negatives that we can digitize for them and make them available to the public. Let's see. And we just got this acquisition, and I share it with you because it kind of gives you a taste of just the nature of the work we do. We recently acquired a World War I Red Cross scrapbook based in Bloomington with images from something called the City Canteen Hut. And I have yet to see this, but I understand it's in the possession of our head librarian. And we're really looking forward to sharing this incredible resource with the community. You know, Bill Kemp doesn't get that effusive, but he was like levitating when he told me that we had access to this incredible piece of history for our community. And we also get phone calls every day. We just recently got a phone call from a trustee of the Wesley United Methodist Church. And he was really looking into the research on the old Chase Bank, which used to house where the church is now located. And that kind of daily interaction is just part of our cadence at the museum. And finally, we're working on improving our space. We are so grateful for the county's assistance. Just this morning, county staff installed a new water sprinkler valve in our basement. So they have been incredibly responsive and helpful. And we are so looking forward to the beginning construction on the new roof, and are starting to discuss using the crane as part of some future installation that will feature in some creative way, because that crane will live I think on the museum square for quite a while we're doing this important rehabilitation. And the other thing about the museum is that we're, and Josh Barnett commented on this, Chairman Barnett, that we are really a gathering place for the community, whether it's for, you know, the American Legion hosting a big event that they do every year, or it's a COVID remembrance ceremony that we have scheduled for March 12th, coming up at 5 p.m. in the Museum Square. And we work in collaboration with a lot of others in the community to do this. But the building is such a gorgeous artifact, and it's so well situated to provide this kind of aesthetic and natural gathering space. So we really are looking to, in our strategic plan, also just continue to uplift the space itself. What can we continue to do to invest in improving the museum in the same way that we're investing in renovating all of our historic lighting through the rotunda? There's a big scaffold there right now, and really looking towards reopening. Our public restrooms project got delayed because the last shipment of tiles was stuck in Mexico. And then when it finally arrived in Texas, that was when they had their huge weather event and got further delayed. And so the tile finally arrived this week, and finally the contractor told me that the public restrooms should be finished by mid-month, and then we'll do the punch list and get all of our codes in order so that we can finally reopen. And we're hoping the scaffolding and the lighting will be well underway too by the end of March, beginning of April. So stay tuned for a big reopening announcement. I really hope it aligns with First Friday downtown, and we can start getting people safely, of course, back into this facility so that they can appreciate all that's happened while the museum has been closed, and that we can start doing more and more hybrid programming going forward. We value this partnership tremendously. I promise I will have pictures next time I share with all of you, and I'm always interested in any questions or comments or concerns that you have about the work that we're doing, that you support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really great. So appreciate you taking the time to be here, and it's going to be great to have these regular interactions as we move forward. Any questions at all from the committee? That just means you were very thorough, and
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, even without pictures, I could paint a picture with words. Although I really enjoyed Larissa's presentation too, so I was glad I was able to hear that.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to be here today. And again, thank you for the continued partnership. And I'm sure that we will be in touch very soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Have
See
a
you
great
around
day.
the square.
Yes. All right. Administrator Rodriguez, back to you on our agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Barnett. The only other thing on the agenda that I have to cover is the existence of our report on recent employment activities in your packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions at all? Okay. Well, let's keep heading through. 4B, Mr. Steffa, Parks and Recreation. You're up to bat.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have any action items this month. I thought we were going to have a tractor lease ready, but there was some wording that the Civil States Attorney's Office questioned, and I'm thankful that they went over that and did have the question. So they're talking with our company that did get the lowest price quote in. So we're hoping to have that ready next month. But I do this lease early in the year because just in case things like this happen. The lease is up July 1st, so we still have a little bit of time. I'm not sweating too much yet. So other than that, all I have is just some updates and a general report on what's been going on out at the park. So I'll just move ahead with that if nobody has any questions about the tractor lease.
That'd be fine.
Okay. We're getting things ordered for the busy season. We just ordered some new kayaks and they came in and we picked those up today for the boat rental, as well as some new life jackets. New recreation signage was ordered. It's a lot of the signage, brown recreational signage that we have now is old and weathered. They're over 15, close to 20 years old. So they held up fairly well, but it's time for them to be replaced. Our second pontoon is ordered. We did get a confirmation that it is going to be in before Memorial Day. So extremely happy about that. So I'm sure those will be popular again this year. The next thing I have on my list, the RFP for the sewage treatment plant is pretty much done. Working with the administrator's office with that. I'm sure the civil state's attorney's office will glean through it real quick and make sure everything's on the up and up. So we'll hope to have that request for proposal out very soon. I'm also putting together some price quotes for a possible 1 to 3 year skid steer lease. We did have some added budget money to the rental line to do so. So we're looking into getting that off the ground. I should have that back. I should have the price quotes back on that by the end of this month. So April, I'll probably have something in April, hopefully, if the price quotes don't come in too high. If they do come in too high, we'll go to a monthly or a 2-month lease on that. But I have no idea. I've never done quotes for skid steers, so we'll see where they come in at. Next on the list, tomorrow we'll be finishing up cutting down our ash trees and splitting wood. We've been extremely busy doing that. That's finally going to come to an end. We'll still have plenty of ash trees to cut down for next year. We use all that wood to sell to the campers for firewood. So, but again, that'll be coming to an end for this year. Next week, the park will start burning prairies and pollinator fields. So if you look to the north and see big plumes of smoke, you'll know that what we're up to. Of course, that's weather permitting. We'll wait for obviously no rain and favorable wind patterns. So next thing I have on the list, we will have our summer employment positions posted on the county's website with the exception of lifeguards. We're still waiting to see if the state is going to let us open swimming for the summer, obviously because of the COVID-19. So we're hoping that we will get to, but until we hear something, those positions will not get posted. But we will have the other positions as far as seasonal maintenance, or excuse me, summer maintenance positions for maintenance, recreation assistants, and 1 boat rental person. We just started working, myself included. Got to get my hands a little greasy, so it felt nice. We're starting to work on mowers and tuning them up for the warm season. It can't get here soon enough, but I guess I better watch what I wish for. But I sure hope it gets warmer, keeps getting warmer quickly. We still only have 1 full-time maintenance worker. We're down 1 full-time person, and we're hoping to get him back by the end of the month. Lumber was ordered and picked up. Hardware was ordered and bought or picked up for our new docks. We're still waiting on the bladders or the floats. They're behind because of the COVID situation, so they're still running behind. We still haven't heard anything from our vendor. The same goes with our picnic table frames. So as soon as those come in, that'll be a priority, getting those done. Next thing on the list I have, we bought a small piece of equipment called a Scarifier. Basically, the best way of putting it is it refreshes gravel driveways or gravel pads. In this instance, it'll be some of our parking lots and our camping pads. It's basically a way to not have to buy gravel to put in, and basically what it does is it pulls the old gravel up and just kind of gives it a new look and without having to spend the money on gravel. So and they're this piece of equipment is very easy to use. You can pull behind our utility vehicle, our John Deere Gator. So we're still waiting for the ground to dry out just a little bit more, but it's actually, I was quite surprised how fast the frost came out of the ground and how quick it's drying up. So I don't think it'll be too long. I decided to sit down with our sheriff's deputy, Deputy Lauren Bartlemay, who's stationed out at the lake, the park. The sheriff's office has an antiquated boat sonar, and it's starting to really show its age. It's over 15 years old. It's over 15 years old because Mr. Wasson was the director when we bought that, helped buy that. But I decided that the park would go half and half on purchasing the boat sonar, the new boat sonar with the sheriff's office, and we'll take that the funds out of our special activities fund. So this new sonar is updated. It's the state-of-the-art equipment. Basically, unfortunately, it has to be used for locating bodies in case somebody drowns in the lake, but also if maybe somebody's equipment is lost, we can use it for that as well. So we decided that the last time we went half and half on it too. So and this sonar unit stays at the park. It does not leave the park. So that is why we decided to go half and half on it again. So next thing I have is I've been working with two different young men, Boy Scouts, with projects for their Eagle Scout projects. The first one is connecting two trails, Mallard Cove North and Mallard Cove South trails. It's something that I've been wanting to get done for years, and just one thing or another comes up. So one young man is going to tackle that project. The second one is a young man's going to take all of our archery target frames and redo the whole thing and start basically from scratch. And then he's going to add little roofs over the top of them so that our archery targets won't get as weathered as they do. So, and there's a possible third project in the works. Young man, he's right in the middle of his proposal right now, but I think he's going to be building the park approximately a half a dozen to 8 benches to put in the main recreation area. and the campground. And possibly we may put some on the west side as well. We'll just have to see where that goes. Obviously, all these projects do not cost the park anything. Part of the Eagle Scout project proposal, part of what they do, the Boy Scouts do, they have to go out and get donations. That's part of the requirement. So, but we have had a great relationship with both the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and I'll talk a little bit about a Girl Scout troop here in just a moment. But it's been great working with both of those groups in that they provide some things that are really useful to the park and to the public, the park users. So, and in exchange, they get their merit badges or Eagle Scout badge. So, like I said, great relationship. And last but not least, this past Sunday, I was working with a Girl Scout troop from Flanagan, and I'm sorry, I can't remember their troop number, and shame on me, but these young ladies made a dozen Bluebird houses, and we put those out in the park, and the existing ones that we had out, they cleaned those out for us, so they're ready to use for the Bluebirds to use this year. A great time. A little sore after a long hike, but other than that, I think things went well. That's the update I had from the park. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
That's great, Mr. Steffa. That's a great update, and really appreciate your thoughtful approach to all those partnerships with the Scouts and some of the others. That's outstanding. Questions from the committee for Mr. Steffa? Vice Chairwoman Woolrab.
Just a quick question of personal interest. Can you describe, Mr. Steffa, where those new Bluebird boxes are generally?
I'm sorry, I'm getting like every first or second word. I didn't get the whole thing.
Could you describe for me where the Bluebird boxes are?
I think the question was describe where the Bluebird houses are. Okay. We have what's called a Bluebird Trail, and we have a map, and it's around the entire park. We put them all over the park. And a few of the old Bluebird houses had to be replaced. Some of them are 20 years old, but they held up for 20 years, so that's not bad. But the additional ones that went out will be put on the map, and the map will be updated, and it will be in the Park Visitor Center, and I'll have IT put it on our park website as well.
Great. Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, Mr. Steffa, thank you so much.
Thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Next item on the agenda is 4C. Mr. Doherty, Facilities Management. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm very good, Chairman. Thank you. No action items for myself this evening. I'll go right into my monthly report.
Thank you.
Animal shelter, we are in the process of seeking bids for new HVAC equipment. That was a budgeted item for 2021. The government center, we found the north elevator unit with some low voltage on an A phase out of the 3-phase equipment. We've cleaned up the disconnect. The culprit was the disconnect switch, and that's shown in figure 4 on page 2 of my report. We've cleaned up that disconnect switch, so that's kind of under our vision. We're working with Kone. I mean, there's a line of demarcation. That is our building power source for the elevator. Anything past that would be Kone's. In doing so, we found out that the feeder breaker, which I list as the 150 amp three-phase feeder breaker in the basement, will not open. So we had to clean the switch up basically live. It was something I didn't put my staff on. I did it myself as soon as PPE, and we disconnected the switch and did it quite safely. So that we're keeping an eye on that. The reason I'm bringing this up is thus to reestablish the importance of electrical maintenance, which we are going to have a complete power outage at that building and go through all these pieces of switchgear. So I'll be ordering that new 150 amp breaker. We'll install it during that outage. Moving on to the jail annex. Unfortunately, during this cold spell we had, we ruptured 2 hot water heating coils in a new air handler in the penthouse. I had a few ceiling tiles that we had to replace down below. These heating coils are not the primary heating coils. They're used to reheat air and humidification, dehumidification application. So it's not the end of the world, but we will get those replaced. The next bullet item for the jail annex is all 6 Raypack heating boilers are repaired and operational. They've been tuned up. The filter boxes have been installed. Just for recall, this was the last month I showed you some pictures of the burners that had been destroyed due to contaminants, but all of those are running once again. My group is in the process of performing winter maintenance on the chillers, towers, strainers. It'll be air conditioning season here before we know it. So we're well on our way on that. I'm very pleased with our progress. We will bring in the OEM manufacturer just to do a startup and do some of the more technical items. Next item, we experienced the kitchen walk-in cooler number 1 quit a week ago due to a refrigerant leak, and that was repaired by a contractor, so we're good there. As bad luck would have it, the kitchen walk-in cooler number 2 quit over just this past weekend, and they had to move all the product into the other walk-in cooler. But we found the culprit there, and that was a pressure control that needed to be changed out. Moving on to the Juvenile Detention Center, we're working with a contractor to update and simplify some pneumatic controls for air handlers. It's Mechanical Systems out of Peoria. Law and Justice Center, we had a sprinkler system in the north Sally Port that froze and ruptured. It's been repaired. It was a T-fitting that cracked, and the insulation in the ceiling, we took it all out because it got wet. It's fiberglass bats, and replaced the insulation, and the fire system is back in use. We were down approximately 2 days while we waited for the ceiling to dry out. Moving on to the museum, as Ms. Emick explained, we did replace the backflow preventer for the fire system. On February the 12th, that device, for some unknown reason, decided to open up its relief valve, and we had a couple feet of water in the museum tunnel. So I'm happy that we got fire protection back in the building. And that valve's installed, and it'll be tested by a licensed backflow preventer testing person tomorrow morning. So that one's behind us. Elevators. Last month, we had questions regarding elevator service. I did contact Kone and talk to them about county elevators, and they are serviced 2 times a month. And anything in between, if we have any problems, they'll come in as called, and they are annually tested and inspected by a third-party inspector every year. Yes, and then every 5 years, they are load tested at 125% of their full load capacity. Personnel, I still have two positions to fill, and we've had a few candidates apply, But and we've hired 2 actually, so we're doing well. And the wages, page 2, the parity information I promised to get you. I'm sorry, I'm incomplete this month. Hope to have it ready next month. And vehicles, there's no action on vehicles, although we are getting ready to go out for bid on a new pickup truck. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Questions for Mr. Doherty from the committee? All right. Well, Mr. Doherty, thank you very much. As always, appreciate your thoroughness and all that you and your staff do for the county to keep us running every day.
You're most welcome, Chairman. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the agenda. Any other business or communication to come before the committee? Okay, very good. Well, with that said, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your service to the people of the county. Everyone have a good night.